Hello everyone, this is RetroFuture and I have another Battleborn character review for you, and in this episode we are going to be looking at Marquis. We're going to be looking at the gentleman sniper himself, one of LLC's finest warriors, and we're going to be looking into his skill setup, his background lore, his Helix loadout, and I'm going to be going over some tips and tricks that I have found to play with Marquis to use him. He's a fairly unique character, one of the few characters that I had initial trouble with right off the bat, but once I figured out how to play with him, he was rather fun and entertaining, and we're going to get right into it with his basic skills loadout. So let's take a look at his first skill, which is Temporal Distortion. Temporal Distortion creates this little bubble that lasts for 6 seconds, and it slows all the enemies inside it. Now that's basically all it does. However, you can augment this thing to do much more, and it's a fairly good thing because it allows you to slow down enemies when they are approaching you, and it's great for controlling choke points, so it's definitely something worth using. It's definitely a good skill for a sniper like Marquis. Second skill is Predatory Strike. Marquis will take off his hat and a little owl will pop out of it, and he will send it out, and this owl will patrol a small section on the map. The owl will fly around there, and the owl will never go away. It will last there until either it is destroyed by an enemy or until an enemy triggers it, and then if it is triggered, it will fly into an enemy and explode, dealing 133 damage. And you can have up to 3 owls at once. These little owls, nicknamed Houdini, they're fairly useful. Like I said, you can have 3 at once, so that means you can use them to cover your flank that way. If you think, oh, an enemy could come up here, just every now and then throw out an owl. So while you're sniping, shooting, and when Houdini is refreshed, when you use Predatory Strike, cover your 6. And fire, cover your 6. So Predatory Strike, not insanely good for damage, but it's good for kind of harassing opponents and also keeping an eye on your flank just a little bit. Now his ultimate attack is Bindle Blast. He will fire a single powerful shot that deals 375 damage, but its damage is increased the longer the shot is in flight. So that means the longer it's traveling through the air to hit its target, it will do more damage. However, he doesn't immediately draw the weapon and fire. He has to charge it up first, but the charge is not that much. You'll hardly notice it. Bindle Blast is very good at taking out waves of enemies because it'll deal explosive damage wherever it hits, damaging everything in its nearby area. So fairly useful. Definitely a good skill setup for a sniper like Marquis. Now his passive ability is 1, 2, die. His Bindlebane, his primary weapon is Bindlebane, and when he hits enemies with his primary weapon, they are marked, and he has 6 rounds in each magazine before he has to reload. He has infinite ammo just like Oscar Mike, but the third shot on the same target adds 50% of the attack damage as bonus damage. So if he hits 3 shots on the same target, that third shot will deal bonus damage. Fairly useful, so long as you're able to constantly hit the opponent, it's pretty good. And since you have 6 rounds starting off, that means you can get that 1, 2, die bonus damage twice per reload. Pretty useful. Now the weapon itself, Bindlebane, has 2 basic forms. Right off the bat, his default base form is that of a pistol. You can't aim down sights with the pistol. He pretty much hip fires, and it has a fairly good rate of fire, although it's not all that accurate and it's not all that powerful. However, if you hold down L2, that's when Marquis will actually aim down sight with his Bindlebane rifle, but however, it won't be a pistol, it will be a high-powered sniper rifle that deals much more damage, but has a slower rate of fire. So Marquis can actually use his Bindlebane for long range and close to mid-range engagements. However, long range is where he excels. You want to engage your enemies at a distance. It's nice that he has a short-range handgun, form, and you'll see me get kills with it, but it's not his most reliable method of attacking. So now that we've had pretty much a basic look at his skill loadout, we're going to move into his background lore. So the first thing you should know about Marquis is that he is a Magnus. He is an artificial life form, just like Isaac. He was created as a unique model, though. He was created and pretty much designed by the Hemsworth family. They wanted some type of Magnus that would assist them in kind of like a personal way, a personal assistant, someone who could provide financial assistance, aid in research, protect families, self-defense, and even babysitting. So he literally was designed, his whole overall design, in terms of purpose, was that of a butler or an assistant, a servant in that one. However, Bartlesby Hemsworth II decided that he wanted to have Marquis' personality slightly modified. He wanted certain ideals of the Hemsworth family to be integrated into his personality, like financial planning, ideals of wealth. So Marquis' personality is a little quirky. You'll hear him in combat constantly calling people hobos, or he'll be constantly talking down to his opponents as if he is superior to them in terms of being upper class, and that's how Marquis is designed. He didn't get that way on his own. He was literally designed to be like that by the Hemsworth family. And speaking of the Hemsworth family, another thing that you should know is that he was Phoebe's personal butler. He was in the Hemsworth family, and what happened was it got to the point where he actually attacked Phoebe. And this will be further explored in the background lore, but eventually he got to the point where he became kind of unstable, and he almost killed Phoebe when she was real little. But he also became very full of himself, and he decided to resign. He became so upset, and he found his servant role detestable, so he resigned from being the Hemsworth family butler, and now he is here in the LLC fighting off the Varelsi and just doing whatever the hell he wants. So he's fairly arrogant. He's definitely got a high and mighty nobility aspect to his personality, similar to that of Umbra. However, he is an artificial life form. He is a Magnus, just like Isaac. And so that's really all there is to know about him, at least in my opinion. I haven't really found anything else in his lore other than he was created and designed by the Hemsworth family, and he's just arrogant, and he considers himself too good for a life of servitude. And that's why he left the Hemsworth family. And now that we're done with his background lore, we're going to go into his Helix loadout, and I'm going to show you how I choose to maximize Marquis' potential in combat for versus and story mode missions. Alright, so here we are with Marquis' Helix loadout. Let's get right into it. Level 1, I prefer haste. Waste makes haste. I like the increased movement speed. It allows me to throw up my temporal distortion. That way I can slow down my opponents and I speed myself up or my allies up. It allows me to get if I need to make a hasty, retreat, this is definitely something that allows Marquis to do that, because Marquis doesn't excel at close range. So I prefer to be able to keep my opponents at a distance, and this is one of the ways that I can keep doing that. Predatory Strike is the Greater Houdini, increasing Predatory Strike's damage. That's good for story mode missions, as well as Stratiform Swiftness, but for versus mode, I prefer Waste Makes Haste. Now, for level 2, I go with Phase Flyer for both story mode and for versus, just because I prefer that whenever my Predatory Strike triggers, it guarantees a hit, and Phase Flyer does that, so that means it'll hit, and whenever it triggers, it will hit something. So it's better than nothing, and it's a guarantee. Eyes Everywhere is useful, but only against certain enemies. Like if you have a D'Andy on the opponent's team, that's definitely something you can consider, since D'Andy loves going invisible in the middle of combat. So Eyes Everywhere is definitely a possibility against someone like D'Andy, or even Oscar Mike, or Shane and Oryx. Whodunit, I've never really found that much of a use for. It's great if you want to set traps, but it's just not my thing. It doesn't suit my personal playstyle. Now for this one, level 3, what we're going to do is we're going to go with executive barrel porting in versus mode and bullet banker in story mode. Now, bullet banker allows you to just keep up the pressure. It allows you to increase magazine size, allows you to take on waves of adds without reloading as often. That's very useful. And reducing the recoil for Bindlebane helps us stay on opponents, especially hard to hit opponents like Thorn, for instance, or Melka when we do versus mode. Now for level 4, this one is really up to you. Big Time is pretty useful in story mode missions, and Time Killer is good in versus game modes. I prefer Time Killer personally overall. I'd prefer to deal damage, especially since it slows. We're also going with the augment to slow our opponents and hasten ourselves. So since we're slowing our opponents anyway, we may as well deal damage. That way, the longer they're in the bubble, the longer they're slowed, and the more damage they take. So fairly useful, and it will last the entire duration of the bubble. So for as long as temporal distortion bubble is active, enemies will take damage while they're inside it. Now for level 5, I prefer Eins, Zwei, Cry. I just prefer that I always like to do more damage. However, if you're very, very, very accurate and you can almost always hit your opponents, Efficiency Expert is definitely worth the slot, because instead of Eins, Zwei, Drei triggering on the third shot, Eins, Zwei, Drei will trigger on the second hit. So, and since you start off with 6 rounds per magazine, and you can even increase the magazine clip size by 2 with Bullet Banker, you can make it so that there's a potential 4 rounds that do bonus damage per magazine. And then you just reload, and then you just keep it up. I'm not extremely accurate with Marquis, so I don't get to do the Eins, Zwei, die bonus all the time. It's kind of a little difficult for me. I'm not a good sniper, but either one is good in story or versus mode. I never found a great use for executive access. It just wasn't all that useful to me. Now for level 6, I prefer distance time. I just like to be able to cast temporal distortion further away from me. That way, if I see an enemy advancing or I see a bunch of adds and I want to slow them down, a bunch of minions, I can cast it a little bit further away than normally, keep them at distance, and it allows me to pick them apart. Parliamentary, my dear, is good in story mode, because if you're getting set up for a huge enemy ambush, like another wave of enemies are coming, and a bunch of Thrall or a bunch of Varelsi, having more owls, more Houdinis flying around the map. You can set them up for ambushes so that they can guard doors and stuff like that. That's Parliamentary, my dear, is good in story mode missions when you're getting ready to fight waves of adds, usually at the end of each mission. And I prefer distant time for versus game modes. Now, for level 7, I prefer bang for the buck in versus mode and autoloader in story mode, because autoloader allows us to we attack and reload faster, allowing us to keep up the damage on waves after waves after waves of adds. And bang for the buck, it allows us to deal more damage to our opponents, and since the base damage is being increased, we will be able to deal more damage and kill our opponents faster, preferably within 1 magazine count. Hopefully. So hopefully we don't have to reload when we're fighting opponents. Now for level 8, I prefer Windfall personally, just because it leaves they both deal extra damage to opponents. However, Windfall deals area of effect damage, which means it can not only just damage the target it was initially focused on, but it can deal damage to other enemies as well in that nearby area for those remaining 6 seconds. So that's why I prefer Windfall over Hoot of the Vigilant for level 8. Level 9, this one is up to you. Either story mode or versus mode, both are very good in both scenarios. Cease and Desist and Time to Spare, both are very good. It's up to your personal preference. Now for the final one, level 10, I prefer wallhacks.x, just simply because I can shoot through walls. So if I have an enemy that's just about to die, and they quickly retreat around the corner, I'll just pull out, Bindle Blast, shoot through the wall, finish them off. I myself have died to this once or twice. So for versus mode, I prefer wallhacks.x, and then for story mode, Bindle Blasts, plural, obviously. That is great for taking out waves after waves of enemies, and it's also not too bad in versus mode when you're taking on minion bots, like in Meltdown. If you want to stop a bunch of minions from getting to an enemy grinder, and because they're about to win, Bindle Blasts, firing 2 Bindle Blasts can wipe out that entire group of minions, so it's very useful. And that's my basic Helix loadout for Marquis. Fairly good, fairly decent. Follow my loadout and you guys should have success with that. Now let's get back to the gameplay. So my battle tactics for Marquis are actually pretty straightforward. I've mentioned it numerous times in this video that he is a sniper, and that's how he should be treated, as a sniper. It's true, he does have a pistol. You can play, close quarters, rushing, stuff like that, but he does not excel. Against melee fighters like Galilea, Phoebe, Wrath, he will lose almost every engagement. He is not suited for close quarters. He can use the pistol, and you'll see me get pistol kills. You've already seen me get pistol kills. You'll see me get more, but that is not where he excels. He excels at harassing and DPSing opponents from across the map. Use those long lines of sight. Use the lanes. Take the angles that your opponents are not expecting, and just piss them off by surprising them with shots that they were not expecting, and that you just literally just ambush them just when they think that they're safe. Like, oh no, I got around the corner, I escaped from my opponents, I'm safe. And then as soon as they stop to either try and heal, or maybe they're going to try and teleport back to their base, to respawn with more health, pick them off. Marquis is great at that. You're going to see me kill one person right over here. Right here, Reyna. She's trying to get away. She's going to try and hide to, save herself. But then, nope. I'm going to pick her off, and just when she thought it was safe to stand still, Marquis shows up to pretty much ruin her day. And that's what Marquis does. Marquis harasses your opponents. Marquis pisses them off from across the map. Marquis is not a fun person to play against. And I've pissed teams off. Like, I swear, teams are talking to each other, and they're saying, let's go get that fucking Marquis who's shooting us from across the map. Like, I've had groups of 3 or even 4 charge my position when I'm playing Marquis because they do not like the fact that I am shooting them from across the map and constantly harassing them while they are trying to fight my teammates. They don't like it. It's really annoying to constantly have to worry about fighting someone who's right in front of you and fighting someone who's a great distance away from you that most enemies don't have the ability to combat. Most enemies can't compete with Marquis at the long distances that he prefers to engage in. And that's what you need to take advantage of when you play as Marquis. Take advantage of the long lines of sight. Use the lanes. Use Marquis, Bindle Bane, aiming down sights with L2, and use that to your advantage, and you are going to have good games. Now, speaking of good games, Marquis is definitely good at getting kills, but he's also very good at getting assists. There are some games where I'll get like only 7 kills, but like 15 assists. Marquis is not guaranteed to get all the kills. He's not guaranteed to steal the kills. Sometimes your teammates will steal them from you when you're about to get the kill. I've had that happen several times. It's just how it is with Marquis. It's a roll of the dice. But Marquis is definitely good at supporting your teammates. He's a great support sniper. He's great at picking people off when they're least expecting it. And I cannot stress enough just how fun it is to pick off opponents when they're not expecting it. They think, oh no, I'm doing good. Then all of a sudden I hit them with my Bindle Blast, and then a few good shots with Bindle Bane later, and they're dead. It's so much fun to catch my opponents off guard just when they think it's safe to hold still or to try and walk in a straight line. Bam, peek around the corner. Yes, you're going to be stealing kills from your teammates, but you know what? That's just how it is. Marquis is definitely a fun, unique character. I consider him the best sniper in the game. Benedict's rockets can take a long time to get there, and Thorn's arrows also can miss easily because they don't take as long as Benedict's rockets. But the arrow definitely travels slower than Marquis' bullets, as expected. You know, an arrow travels slower than a bullet. I mean, what else do you expect? But Marquis is definitely good at DPSing and catching your opponents off guard just when they think they're about to get away. Nope. Marquis will have you, you know, screaming and cursing, you know, just when... I mean, I love playing as Marquis. I love pissing my opponents off. They charge my positions only to get really, really butthurt when they realize that it's not going to be so easy to kill me. Marquis can use his predatory strike and his temporal bubble to generate an escape route or to just constantly harass my opponents. You know, he can cover his 6 with his skills, and he can DPS fairly good at a distance with reasonable accuracy. I myself am not all that accurate with Marquis, but even still, you see me getting kills with him fairly consistently, and that's how I play Marquis. I think he's great at range, and with the range, you should also be a good team player. Take out enemy turrets, take out accelerators, take out, you know, enemy defensive positions and items so that all their close quarters teammates, when they're rushing in, they have less things to worry about. Marquis is great support. He is great at DPS. You'll steal kills. You'll get a lot of assists or kills in any game. As long as you play smart with Marquis and use him to the areas where he is best suited, and you play to his strengths, you should not struggle to do well with him. He's fun. He's interesting. He's narcissistic and arrogant as hell, constantly calling his opponents hobos. It's very fun to play as Marquis, and that's really all I've got to say about him in this review. I hope you guys did enjoy this review, and if you did, please don't forget to like, favorite, subscribe, comment down below, follow me on Twitch and Twitter, stay updated with me on future videos. I have several more backlog that I need to get to, so I hope you guys look forward to my next video. I will see you guys all there. This is RadTech Shoe signing off.